Rent the council, yeah, but you know what, that's it, it's because it had this. Oh, John Richards. Not Richards, or was it Diamond Scissors or Richards? Right. Oh, Diamond Scissors, yeah. So I'll, okay. All right, good evening, everybody, 7 o'clock, eyes down. I need to read some general housekeeping now. So those who are in physical attendance would need to turn off an electronic device to avoid feedback. I need to ask remote or actually someone's phone ringing halfway through. I need to ask remote participants to keep the camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. Meeting is being live webcast and the recording stays on the council's website. Is that, we'll definitely stay on the website. Yes. And for any speakers to be picked up by the camera, you may need to come to the front of the room. It can pick up audio from further away, but having listened into a few remote meetings, it doesn't always pick up the first few words you say. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Sittingbourne Area Committee, including any visiting members, none, and members of the public. Good evening. Good evening. The following officers are in attendance at Slough Borough Council. Head of Policy, Governance and Customer Services, Mr. David Clifford, who's not remote. This isn't a holiday, he's generally here. Policy Engagement Officer, Janet Dart. Graham Tough, the Green Spaces Manager. Good evening, Joe. No, Councillor Hall. And Adrian Oliver, who's the Active Travel Coordinator, and he is remote. Do we have any other remote?
We have two area committee members, Councillor Whelan and Councillor Denver.
So I'd like to welcome Councillor Whelan and Councillor Denver, who are online, and divisional member, divisional member for KCC. I'd like to remind people that if you wish to speak, somehow get my attention, and then state your name and the organisation they represent. In fact, I think I know everyone in the room, so I already know the organisations, but it's obviously for the recordings. Anyone who's attending remotely to mute their microphone unless they intend to speak, and indicate on the IM if they wish to speak, which Janet will deal with. Any member of the public that uses the IM inappropriately may be removed from the meeting. Something I'm going to add to that is, if you want to obviously engage with me, speak through the chair. And if you do want to ask questions of officers, again, you speak through the chair rather than try to set up individual conversations. I'm trying to learn as I can. Right, I'm going to read the following out. Please be aware of the evacuation procedures to follow in the event of emergency. There is no scheduled testing for fire alarm during this meeting. If the fire alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions, using the doors signed as fire escapes and assemble where directed. And they've got a couple of fire exits. Yeah. And should anyone require assistance in evacuating the building, please make the Swale Borough Council officers aware of any special needs so that suitable arrangements may be made in the event of an emergency. I believe that's everything. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Simon Clark. We have two, as I said, two members who are remote. So that's Councillor Whelan and Councillor Denver.
Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any pecuniary and non-pecuniary declarations of interest on any of the items we are discussing tonight? Councillor Weakness.
Non-pecuniary interest in item 9 as a member of the High Street Society.
The director of Strasbourg.
Thank you. Also, I want to speak on
And also I am a member of the Northern Region Society. Will not speak on item 9. Agenda item 4, the minutes. All members agree that the minutes of the last meeting held on 6th of September 2022, minute numbers 272 to 282. Is it true record? Or orange record? Or is it true record?
Great.
Thank you, members. Agenda item 5, matters arising. Now, I assume you've all read your papers and or you will receive them. I know there's been a problem. And that I will only. Good evening. I think that's where one of our members, who I won't mention, made the trip up to the community up over there. Yes, if you can just sign in, please. Good evening, Marion and Chris. We're up to agenda item 5, so we're cracking on tonight. Obviously, you've all read the update, so I'm going to update the ones that I'm concerned with or I've been asked to update on. So item 1, the entrance to skate park and Dolphin Barge. At this stage, all we know that Essential Land are putting an application to build behind the Dolphin Barge. So it's on the portal if you want to visit it and make comments. Item 2, City Mall Tennis Club. This obviously isn't the main item, which will be agenda item 7. So we'll leave that to agenda item 7. So you like?
Yeah, so just briefly on that one.
Number 2 then, Councillor Gibbons.
Yes, yeah. Just midway down the paragraph where it says this has been escalated top senior officers. I'm guessing that should be 2 senior officers rather than top senior officers. I know we have some top senior officers.
I think we have some top senior officers. Thank you for calling that. Item 3, the Kemsley Arms. Councillor Dender, are there any further updates you'd like to bring to us on this?
Thank you, Chair. No, there aren't any real updates. I've asked again for an update a few days ago, but I haven't had a reply. As far as I know, it's still deemed unviable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dender.
Sorry again.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
Mentioned within that particular article, and I've also spoken to the Curtis officer and the chief officer on planning on that matter, and it's my understanding to me, but I can't confirm, is that there are ongoing discussions with the applicant, which seems to me to say that there is communication taking place as opposed to not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Noted.
If I could come back, Chair, if I may.
Councillor Dender.
Very quickly. Yes, I'm aware of the discussions that were taking place some weeks ago. I'm not sure if they're still taking place. But as ward member and Councillor Carnell, it will be very handy if we are told what's going on. The property is in our ward, and we're simply not kept up to date with what's going on. I know planning are very busy. I understand that, completely understand that. I know the pressure they're under. But a short email, a short acknowledgement of an email asking for a quick update, I don't think should be ignored. And I'd like that to go on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dender. Noted. Item 4. The bus service. Jackie isn't here tonight. Councillor Winkless and I met with him, and we know we can come up this week to discuss his concerns around bus services. I have emailed Stagecoach and Arriva, and I will do Chalkwell, and then pass on any contact details onto Janet to see if we can have a representation by the bus services at a future area committee. Councillor Gibson.
Just another minor item in there. I know that we've got the KCC divisional member for sitting board, and to my recollection,
There is a one.
We've got two, one for North and one.
Yeah. Councillor Dendar, was you the KCC divisional member that met with KCC cabinet member about school buses?
Yes, we have several of us, and it's in discussion at the moment. There's really not much more I can say until the budgets have gone through and been agreed at KCC. But it's a matter of high discussion across there. We should know around about February just how it pans out, which services will be saved and which not. Thank you.
Councillor Dendar. I think that was there. It should be Chittenden North. I think that was what Councillor Gibson was raising. Item 5, the improvements to lighting. I've checked back on when I sent the emails. I have passed on to Councillor Dendar the fault that was reported to KCC, and I am asking Janet to chase up the response on the clock tower lights in Milton with the appropriate officer. No further claim on that. Item 7, the options for Roman Square. I did get an email back from Kieran. Those members, obviously, who were at full council would have heard that the funding has now been agreed. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund investment plan, which is over 3 years. So I'm going to read out some of its capital allocation for Cinnamon Town Centre of 60,000 in 24-25. And it was being left open to the member working group about the greening of the High Street, which has been one of the questions that we've discussed for Roman Square. And there needs to be some preliminary work. And there are revenue allocations made within the UK Shared Prosperity Fund for town centre activity. It may be that a portion of this could be used for such preparatory work in 23 and 24, once members have determined which capital projects should be supported. So that kind of is where we're up to on item 7 there. As a member of that group, I will try and keep the not just this committee, but all members updated. But they'll see it anyway via emails from Kim. Swarborough Council website is still being worked on. Not update on that. Item 9, Councillor Rolls, would you like to speak on the Swell Media and Arts Centre lease? Is there anything in there that's?
Evening, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, Swell Media Arts Centre had the help and it helped to improve the High Street city, given 34, the fresh venue and the support early with the grant from this committee. In our first year, the ground floor has become a very successful art gallery that has held various exhibitions and events that can be seen on our website with photographic record and plus social media. And the events have included work from local artists, workshops with schools, art exhibitions, celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Queen, Pride event, artwork from local prisons, children's art from various schools, City Born in Bloom, Sheppey Artists Fortnight, which has just finished, and City Born Encounters on the 3rd of December. The community venue included the Old Forge work, wartime, the media centre, and a visit in the evening to Yellow Stocks, where we celebrated 40 years. And now we've got an exhibition, if anybody can take a look in at 34, of a Christmas gallery and activities which is going on to Christmas. We're now starting to take bookings for 2023. And we plan to work with Canterbury College students with our arts training. We now have a board, and we're looking at developing the venue to become a CIO. And we're a moment a CIC, which does give us limited for funding. And we were advised to become a charity, and that is in the process of forming various trustees. And we would change the name to Swell Community Arts Centre. We have a working team which have various issues with standards that are needed for health and safety and required by funding bodies. When writing this paper, and even tonight, we still haven't got the lease returned from our solicitors, which are told is in the hands of SPC Proxies solicitors. So that is still an issue. The Community Arts Centre will attract local residents, and we will also become a visitors centre for Sittingbourne. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillor Dendar, is that a legacy hand, or are you looking to speak on this item?
Sorry, legacy hand, Chair. I'll take it down.
Thank you, Councillor Dendar. Any questions on item 9 in the room? Thank you, members. Item 10 as is. Item 11, Town Centre Volunteer Group. I have emailed Ali Corbell to see if there's any tasks. Many of the tasks I was looking at doing have been cancelled due to inclement weather, even prior to the cold. Prior to that, we had lots of rain, so a lot of the work has already been cancelled, and I will keep the group updated as and when tasks become available. Items 12, 13 and 14 are all within the Burston area we discussed at the last area committee meeting. Do we know, Councillor Hall, Councillor Hampshire, have any updates on any of those 3 items?
Item 12, we don't have many restriction lines in the investment, but I'm quite happy that the proposal to more on the regular basis actually in the sale. I keep it to it. Actually, I'm very based last week, so I'm saying cool.
Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Item 13, yeah, not much to say on this. At the moment, I'm negotiating with the Stedman process of getting the gates fitted. So at the moment, it's a pathway behind some property in Coombe Drive. Some young youths are running wild there, calling setting off fires and the residents for schools and breaking windows. But if we can get these gates fitted, that would all the problem. Sorry, that was 13. That was like 14. Go back to 13. Yeah, this has been going on for a long time, and today we talked to Terry, I couldn't bring up one type, and he said his assistant of his time, but we went over to that. The police have been out there, we've done everything to stop it, but these children came out again from another estate. I don't know what to say or what to suggest anymore, it's really difficult. But I think everybody's doing their best, the police as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Hampshire.
I don't know how deep it actually is, because they're going to find out, because of disabilities and children. Also, on that particular one, it's an education type issue, and education doesn't only happen to. Is there anything that the council could do to safeguard like pupils? thing, in that area. I don't know if that- and on some forcing in blind areas, the nature of children that they play at. And sometimes it's a hotspot one year, it's not a hotspot the next year. I'm very aware that there are money issues and affordability, then going forward, we really need to know how much they spend. I spoke to actually simulation fine, they had a very long talk about this, and he said he's lived in Contride for 40 years. It's the first time in his experience that this has actually occurred. And I'm not denigrating what's happened, it's been residents there, the fire centre, all following this down, you know, this is my. However, if there's, again, an education that we need to find out who these children are and educate not just the children, but the parents, and they are, you know, it's, you know, a multi-agency
Yes.
approach to tackling the issue. Just spending money willy-nilly is probably not the way to the initial time.
Thank you, councillor Hampshire, noted. As we have Graham here, that would be very handy. I understand, I take it you're referring to the fact the pond is iced over and the fact that 3 children died just this week,
Exactly.
8, 10 and 11, I believe they were.
Yeah, there's a 6-year-old still.
Um,
In terms of the depth of, I'll be honest enough to say that I don't know how deep it actually is. I can probably find out because somewhere in the archive there will be a planning application and the detail for the design of. But in terms of somebody going through and on ice, it doesn't actually have to be very deep anyway. So it's certainly deep enough for you to for a child to drown. So, I think in terms of the events of this week, I'm sure that most of the green spaces managers and people who are responsible for the ponds are looking and thinking about what, if anything, that they can do to try to reduce the risk. Again, I tend to think that it's about education. And I heard a fire officer speaking on the radio, sort of saying about parents, you know, it brings it to light and parents spending, 5 minutes talking to their children about these types of issues. So, we are rather reliant on parents and parenting, but in the same way, it may well be that this type of issue goes alongside the other antisocial behaviour issues, and as to whether there's any sort of education that can be sort of identified. So it's one that's very much to the fore at the minute, and we're all trying to think about it.
Thank you, Graham. I have councillor Winkler's, councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that one of our volunteers, Justin, is doing is trying to raise finance for workshops with young people to educate. But I mean, one of the things we were doing is fly tipping, but this is another project that we could look into and work in the schools.
Thank you, councillor Rolls. Good idea. Councillor Winkler.
Thank you. Just following up with the safety aspect, perhaps the Hampshire's brought up. Wouldn't, I think I know the pond you're talking about, but anyway, any pond, wouldn't there be a possibility of possibly putting some form of protective fencing around the pond to save the kids walking into it? Just a suggestion.
I think the difficulty is that we have many ponds sort of around the borough. Got the canal, which is about a mile long, over on the island. So you're talking about sort of a huge, sort of undertaking to look at doing something like that. And then there's sort of the majority of the year, obviously, people want access to these spaces. So I'd probably say it isn't very practical, and wouldn't look particularly great either. Yeah, I don't think in terms of children's lives, you can't really put cost to that, but you have to be sort of focused on what the issue is, what the risks are. And I think it's been identified, you know, the education and the trying to encourage parents to talk to their children and use this example was, you know, very real, and the dangers of this.
This one's the fishing pond as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not the one in the park. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, thank you, Councillor Hall.
If you're in the first two, you didn't remember about 2 or 3 years ago, we sat down and discussed having a deal with some volunteers patrol maybe East Stockholm. And it was all referred to the last minute to spill for whatever reason. Is that something that you can discuss in the future? I mean, yes, because it's getting really good attention, and this best one in the summer. And I found a 4-year-old kid in the ponds really had to follow police. So if you could get the volunteers back on board and a bailiff, which will deal with the fishing aspect as well. Yeah.
I think certainly it's something to consider and to look at. There's no reason not to. I think that the Kensington Club, I suspect like many clubs, really struggled over COVID in that period, and you know they struggle to sort of attract. They can attract people to fish, but in the good old sense, it's difficult to attract people to assist them with bailiffing and sort of some of those issues that it's a bit of a thankless task to go and ask not to do something.
Fortunately,
But
some people came forward to, you know, last few months willing to take that job up, so
yeah,
I'll discuss it.
yeah, but it's certainly something that, yeah, more than happy to explore again.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. David?
I just want to say something that as a child I was brought up by the lake, and I spent many happy hours skating and playing on that lake. And we were fortunate to have a warden, park warden living on the site. And he, every time we had a winter, he would break the ice around the edge, therefore making it clear that it was not to be accessed. And then, of course, when he thought the ice was thick enough, then we as children could make access onto the lake and have some fun. Just
It sounds like a good idea, David. Thank you. And Councillor Gibbon?
Yeah, so for me, we heard from Graham about the fire and rescue service and senior officer speaking about this incident. And of course, in terms of education, as Councillor Fisher said, there's a real opportunity there because then fire and rescue service have their own water safety units. And I am absolutely 100% certain that they will be prepared to come along and do things like seminars. We've got the ideal hall there to be used, and they'll come along to schools and engage there as well. So I think it's something we really should consider getting them on board in quite an early opportunity, and I'm sure, given the sadness this week, that they'd be even more keen to do so.
Thank you.
It's just all right and see if we can move things forward, or not the Morgans do.
Thank you,
That's
Councillor.
something to,
That's
well, actually, if I bring along with each time, give them all the reasons, they'd be really great, so.
Yeah, good.
They have been, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. And in the discussion, are we going to look at writing or we get the Morgans to write?
Well, I can get something written on the behalf of Chair, if that's, did you want to ask the best proposal and second for that?
Yes, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Can we have, a proposer and a seconder for that, that Janet was right to the Campfire and Rescue to see if they could. Well, I think I'd say Councillor Hampshire is the proposer and Councillor Gibson is the seconder, because they got their hands up quicker. Thank you, that makes it, that's actually made good sense. I think we've maybe in recent years drifted away from having these hard frosts where we end up with lots of ice, and all of a sudden we have such weather this time, and a little reminder may be very helpful. Thank you, members. 15 is 16 is as a 17, so there's nothing to speak on this. Thank you, members. We now go over to agenda item 6, and Adrian Oliver is going to speak regarding the active travel fund. I don't know if members believe this would have been at Apple Yard.
Yes.
Where Adrian first spoke about the application for funding to improve walking and cycling, and he now has an update for us. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Sorry I can't be there in person this evening. Train strikes and icy conditions have meant I'm beaming into you remotely. I have a presentation, which is always a dangerous thing, but here we go. Okay, so yes, back in the summer, I popped in to talk to you about active travel in general, and later in July, the conference Active Travel England launched or announced Active Travel Fund 4 to be released in September. Active Travel Fund 4 is a £470 million capital fund for England, for transport authorities in England. And as I say, it was due to be launched in July, due to be launched in September. But as we all know, there was a bit of a government hiatus in September, and that announcement was delayed. However, what did happen in the month before, in August, was that Active Travel England asked all transport authorities to complete a self-assessment, basically asking them about their performance with active travel measures and interventions. And also they asked about political support and asked about the issues that they were facing. On the basis of that self-assessment, Active Travel England then rated every transport authority in the country from a rating of 4, which was great, perfect, good, to 0, which is needs to do better, or absolutely appalling. Kent County Council were graded as a 1, so not the worst, but it wasn't alone at being graded 1, because a lot of the Shire transport authorities sat in that, because it's very difficult to score much higher than that when you are a multi-tiered council environment. So it was tricky for them. However, you know, it was 1 and it wasn't downgraded by Active Travel England, which is a good sign, unlike Sussex, West Sussex, which was, and Worcestershire that was too. But we're a 1, and that has an impact on future funding for active travel. So the fund was due to be launched in September, but it wasn't. The Capability and Ambition Fund was, and we put in a bid for that. This was a fund that was aimed at improving our ability to bid for funds in the future. So it was, we put in funds to get some designs and also some feasibility studies taken. No idea where that is at the moment. It was due to be announced earlier this month. It hasn't been announced yet, so we don't know what our allocation is at the moment. Then in October, Active Travel Fund 4 was still delayed, and November still delayed, and December, and it still hasn't happened. However, Kent has been very wise. It's gone ahead with working with districts on active travel interventions and what we may or may not want in terms of funding from the Active Travel Fund 4. And so it ensures that when it does finally hit, which we hope it will, we will be prepared. The downside to this is we don't really have any formal criteria at the moment for Active Travel Fund Tranche 4. We only have the guidance that was announced with the announcement of the fund back in July. So it is about building networks. The funding will be concentrated on large conurbations. So we have to focus on our larger conurbations, and we are then competing against metropolitan areas, which obviously makes things a little bit tricky. Whatever we do has to align with government priorities, which are the cost of living crisis, levelling up, and carbon reduction. But whatever we do, it has to be ambitious. It has to be rebalancing our streets. That means giving more weight and emphasis to walking, cycling, and wheeling, and it has to be inclusive. Ooh, that didn't work. There we go. So we've got some guidance. We've also got the fact that we are now in a sort of new transport world, as I outlined in earlier in the summer. We have had gear change, which is the new strategy for walking and cycling and wheeling. We've got new cycle infrastructure designs, which are radically different from what's gone before. And we're expecting a new edition of Manual for Streets any day now. That, again, will be very different from what's gone before, but is building on the platforms of Manual for Streets 1 and 2. Some changes that you probably are aware of is the fact that the highway code has changed, and we have things like priority at junctions for walking, and we have a new hierarchy of road users, which puts walking and cycling at the top, and then followed by motorised vehicles, and obviously at the end, at the bottom, large HGVs. Here we go. So the proposals we're talking about for Sittingbourne include things like working from left to right at the top, bi-directional cycle lanes, slightly light segregated cycle lanes, even low-level light segregation cycle lanes on the left. We're talking about contraflows. We're talking about traffic light management as well, where we're looking at potentially advanced stop lines with cycle filters that allow cycles to go first, and then the lights change for the vehicles behind. We're also talking about residential 20-mile-an-hour areas. There's a few in Sittingbourne already, and it's about whether we should be expanding those to make life quieter and safer in our residential streets. And then for pedestrians and for traffic-free areas, we're talking about better lighting. We're talking about raised zebra crossings, a little bit of change to the way we access our paths, moving away from gates and moving more towards bollards, improving surfaces like they did in Birmingham. This path at the bottom here was all muddy. We have a few of those. And then with a bonded surface and widening, it's so much easier and to use. And we've also picked up some of the work that Alison did for the SPD and for the Avenue of Remembrance, and we've linked that into the work that we've now put proposals for Sittingbourne. And we have a map which, it seems to be working. There we go. What we'll do is we'll send around the link to this map so you can zoom in and see what the different interventions are. But fundamentally at the heart of all of this is the start of building a network for walking and cycling. And this is particularly concentrating on the key destinations. So the town centre and the schools and the sort of the green spaces. Got to get that in there in the room.
Adrian, your map hasn't appeared.
Oh,
I know the map you're going to bring up because I've used it, but we've still got the hyperlink.
Okay, bear with me 2 seconds and I will hopefully resolve that. Hang on, let's stop sharing.
Yes, there we are.
Oh, thank goodness for that. So just to recap, just to recap. So we're talking about building a new network for walking and cycling, and we've focused on an east-west route aligned with the A2. And we've focused on connecting destinations. So we've looked at schools, we've looked at green spaces, and obviously looked at the residential areas. So the blue lines are the network, and then the brown blobs are different interventions. So when you've got the link, you can zoom in and click on an intervention and see what it is. So this one is lighting in the underpass and improve externally, and to be improved externally, ground lighting, better vegetation management and CCTV. If we go along the railway line, we've got something similar over this side, which is lighting inside and externally, security railings, both sides at each end, and CCTV. Basically, we want to make these spaces comfortable and secure for people to use. So that's a key element of this whole process, is making sure that walking and cycling is comfortable. And if we go out here, we've got here, now we're talking about light segregated cycle tracks that run from the roundabouts here all the way through to the traffic lights by the City Water School up in the far east. This route actually goes on because it then connects up with whatever happens over here with the new estates, which I think are called Springfield. Or is that, I'm getting confused with the cartoon series, Simpsons. And again, we've got an underpass here, which needs improving. And we've got a crossing here, again, that needs improving. So some of it is improvement, some of it's new stuff. There's a lot of it. And we hope that it will actually contribute to making Sittingbourne a much nicer place to walk and cycle. It's a 3-year fund, so this is about works over a 3-year period. We have to be absolutely cruelly honest with ourselves, in as much as we are one of 12 districts that's competing for funding at county level. The county already have 60 schemes that they are looking at. Those are 3 each from the districts, and then whatever they already had on their shelves. And once that competition is done, if we're successful at that level, we then compete nationally. And we are working with a slight disadvantage, as we are only granted a level 1 assessment from our active travel self-assessment earlier in the year. But if we be positive and be optimistic, we've got 3 schemes for the 3 conurbations in Swale. Sittingbourne is one of those 3, and what the nice thing about the approach Kent are taking at the moment is it's giving us time to make these presentations, to give people an idea what active travel investment infrastructure would look like, and it is another opportunity for us to talk about how we can actually improve our places through using active travel. I'm going to stop sharing now because that's me done, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Very good. Do we have any questions from members? Councillor Truelove.
No question, but just a real comment. I mean, that's all very encouraging. What is really disappointing is that over the years when we've had developers talking about regenerating Sittingbourne, it's always been talked. First was when Tesco's came, and then Essential Lands and Spirit of Sittingbourne, about connectivity from one side of the railway to the other. We have no connectivity between the south side of the railway and the north. The idea of anybody walking, as they should, be able to walk from the station safely to the retail park, or to Morrison's, is just not possible. So, and until we've got that, we're only partially providing walking and cycling routes around Sittingbourne. The people who developed the Morrison site, the Essential Lands, they told us they're going to build this viaduct across from where Morrison's is to the retail park. Well, that never happened. And previously to that, we had Tesco's who were going to build something equivalent to the Dartford crossing from one side to the other. And then there was going to be lots of commercial and housing development here. Well, that never happened. So I'm just saying, I just don't want you to be too overconfident. This is good. Given the amount of money that you might or might not get, we've still got, as members in Sittingbourne, we've still got a concern about the lack of connectivity through Sittingbourne, from the high street to the new development, the light cinema and so on, then across the railway to the retail park. And without that, there are serious limitations to the what you talked about, pleasant nature of people living and walking around or cycling around Sittingbourne. So, not a question, I just want to put you down a bit, really.
No problems at all. That's the railway creates a real barrier, and it does need resolving. And I'm meeting Network Rail and Southeastern in January to discuss this further. Primarily, we're starting to talk about the underpasses and improvements to those, and then access from the north side to the station. But I love the idea of a viaduct. Yeah. But yeah, we need to find better ways of connecting the north and the south of the railway. Absolutely. Not for this funder. I think that's a longer term plan. I think, and I think we definitely need Network Rail on board to actually probably lead it and sponsor it, and really come up with a vision that would actually solve the problem once and for all, and not leave it to developers.
Thank you. Councillor Wakeles.
Looking at your map, I'm pleased to see that there's proposals along Mill Way to link in with the existing cycle one in Saffron Way. It's a good start. Councillor Truelove touched on, but I see there's no plans to sort of extend a little bit further out, and I say on the B2006 and go more west with proposals.
Yeah, there's the existing cycle path along there, and we're talking with Sustrans at the moment, who we're asking them to undertake a feasibility study of the B2006 towards Kempsey Station, to see whether we can actually get a off-road or traffic-free cycle path up through there. But we're waiting to know whether we've got funding for that. We won't know until January. There is existing infrastructure there, so I've not repeated it too much at this stage. I think that's a next stage onwards. But yes, you're right. I think also some of the work we've put in here around improving access to and improving sort of cycling through Milton Creek Country Park will help as well.
Any other questions from members? Thank you, Andrew. I just have a couple of comments myself. Thank you, Councillor Truelove, for reminding me of Tesco's boat-shaped viaduct that we're going to build. I was going to have a shopping mall on it. Yeah. Railway bridge at Crown Quay, there is a project to widen. And I know that is an ongoing discussion with Network Rail. And unfortunately, some members may remember, I did ask a question at full council of the previous administration, following the development of Spirit of Sittingbourne, on how people would connect. And I was told that there was no vision for connecting the two sides, and that he didn't think that people would try to do that. That was the reply I had. I won't mention names, but I'll tell you afterwards. Yes, I think it's a good point that Councillor Truelove made, that the connectivity between the retail parks and the high street has always needed improvement, and it will need funding from Network Rail. And I know there is, like I say, the work in progress on the main bridge at Crown Quay. Thank you, Adrian. Any other questions from any other members? No? Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, I was coming in.
Oh, sure. Councillor Dindol.
Thank you. Not a question, really. Well, maybe it is a question, but I'm interested in using off-road wherever possible. It is impossible to get proper lanes on road. And we have a number of PROWs going through Sittingbourne. I hope we're taking maximum advantage of that. And I would like to see that some of the money goes to improving the PROWs, improving the state of them, so that cyclists can actually use them and not have to go on the public roads. You mentioned Milton Creek Country Park. Yeah, through the park. It would be lovely to have a bridge across to the creek side on the other side, but that's a long, as Steve's nodding his head, I say that's a long-term aspiration. But if you could get one going along the creek side at the back of the Red Road developments and then back up to the Saxon Shore Way, that would be fantastic, and link up with the Saxon Shore Way up the other end, and then use the Saxon Shore Way to get up from Eurolink and out. So I would like to think we're taking the public rights of way into consideration wherever we can. I know they're expensive to upgrade. I understand that. But still, to me, it's a better alternative than my son. Sorry, he's now 40, but my son getting killed when he was going to Borden Grammar School, getting killed on Mill Way. I used to tell him to cycle on the road, and we had a policeman coming to us once to have a go at us, and I still made him cycle on the pavement. So I would not let him cycle on the road, and I still wouldn't if he was doing it today. There are some areas that are just far too dangerous to put cycle lanes in. Thanks.
Adrian, do you have any further responses?
Whatever cycle lanes we put in will be segregated if they're on road, and yes, PROWs are an important part of this efforts, and we're working closely with the Kent PROW team.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for all the work you've done on this. As you highlighted some of the ones we discussed, particularly the underpass at the Burnham, which is particularly horrible.
Indeed.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Don't get too cold out there.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, members. On to agenda item 7. which is Lawn Tennis Association Tennis Court refurbishment proposal, which will be introduced by Graham.
Thank you very much, Sharon. As the report, really, the Lawn Tennis Association have approached the council, being a sort of targeted area, with an opportunity for funding, for refurbishment of existing hard courts at King George's playing fields and at Milton Recreation Ground. The background to the funding is sort of contained in the report. Essentially, the funding is for grassroots tennis, and having had the course surveyed, the LTA have sort of come up with their proposals and sort of indicate values for each of the sites, which again is contained in the report. Obviously, as a funding pot, there is a certain level of criteria that we, as the council, would need to meet. At King George's, that's fairly straightforward because it's used purely for parks, grassroots tennis, to turn up and play. At Milton, we have a slight issue around the commitment to tennis alone. At the minute, the site is designated, was built for multi-sports use, and has basketball nets and could be used for football. So the LTA would require us to commit to tennis. So that's one of the issues which we need to resolve. In terms of where we're at presently with Milton, is obviously we have a tennis club that operates out there. Some of the members are here tonight. We are in the process of negotiating with them around the lease and sort of formalising our agreement for their usage. The essence of it is that we need to try to get to the stage of agreeing just tennis usage, and certainly I think officers see tennis as the most likely way to increase participation and usage of it. One of the other major issues is around the future sustainability of the course. The LTA will be seeking us to sign up to a 15-year agreement to maintain and to potentially resurface, repaint, etc. In the future. And as such, they always recommend a sinking fund. So they would need that commitment to the council maintaining those facilities in the future. That's essentially around the fact that they don't want to be back in the same position in 15 years' time, with us seeking potentially sort of more funding from somebody to sustain the tennis usage. In order to be able to achieve that, we've looked closely at how we could increase revenue. And what we're proposing for both sites is that essentially we put in electronic gates, and the usage of the tennis courts would be on a pay and play basis. Again, within the report there is, we've done some work around what that revenue stream could be, done some work around what the proposals for the fees could be. And essentially it looks, or what has been proposed is for a fee of around £6 per hour to use a tennis court, and for £9 if you need to use floodlighting, with the potential for having season tickets, which you could sort of target also at different groups and yeah, depending on the ability to play. I think that we've also been given that the certainly King George's is currently a free to use facility. We've also looked at potentially looking at continuing with some free to play sessions, so that there's again the opportunity to get usage, yeah, for the privilege. Essentially, sort of the report sort of takes you through all of that that detail. But I think what we're, as officers, what we're really seeking is your views or your agreement, I suppose, as the area committee to take us forward to the community committee with the aim of getting them to provide the formal agreement for the changes to the designation of course to single usage, i.e. tennis, and to commit to the potential funding the proposal.
Thank you, Grant. We have a couple of requests to speak, but we have Kevin Kelly to speak on this item. I'd like to invite Kevin first.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, my name's Kevin Kelly. I am the secretary of City Hall Tennis Club. Those who don't know, we use Milton Recreation for our tennis. We've got a very strong membership of over 90 playing members at the moment. We allow the children of the members to come free of charge. But first of all, our club would like to thank Swellborough Council, in particular Graham Tubbs, and Jay Jenkins, for supporting us over the years, and also given the LTA, proposal to the LTA funds at this level of the stage. We strongly support the proposal and feel the courts will fall into further disrepair should the LTA funding opportunity be missed. I've got a contact at the LTA, there's Matt Glazer, has told me that the funding will not be available much longer. So we urge the committee to support the proposal.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Councillor Truelove?
Yes, Chair, and this is a quite complex issue about sports development in Swale. Sports development in Swale, looked at from the point of view of excellence, but also participation, is restricted by lack of facilities. And tennis is a really good example of that. So is athletics. You know, we get generations of young athletes and they have to go somewhere else. And, you know, we could potentially have generations of young tennis players who just have to go somewhere else. So, although it's been our policy that the Milton Rec was multi-sport, I personally think now that the opportunity to get in a much better facility and have it linked to a club where sports development can take place, where the club can actually encourage excellence, but also encourage development of young people. I would suggest that we now go with that. We don't really want to lose this potential funding. So I would support that. We are only recommended, aren't we, to another committee, but
I believe, I don't know, take advice on this, that we would propose and then second and then vote on sending it to the community committee.
yeah.
I believe that.
So that's what I would propose, that bearing in mind, we've said it's a multi-sport site before, but it hasn't necessarily grown as such. It hasn't necessarily provided sports development in the way that the tennis could. I think we should go along with that. The other site, just improving a facility and having no connection with a club or with anybody who could actually develop it. So it's just something that gets used probably, you know what happens, Wimbledon takes place, everybody's enthusiastic for tennis, for about 10 days and they roll up at any old place. And if they go to St George's now, the ball bounce is too high, they can't play tennis properly. You're providing them with a facility. But I think it would be good, I don't know whether that club could actually extend. There ought to, if there were a club connection to it, not to exclude the public, but to actually ensure that, you know, if there are young people playing tennis at school who want to develop, that there might be some sort of development there. I also think we should encourage that and not just see it as, you know, you put some money in the slot and just saying we get a bit of income out of it, but otherwise, you know, we've got no interest. Now the question that Graham raises, that this takes a responsibility on our part, is something that you have to take on board. But the overall picture as well is that we have facilities for a lot of sports. And, you know, if we could do that with tennis, I think that would be a great advantage because quite clearly it's, you know, it's a sport that a lot of people could develop in and don't do because simply nothing there. So I propose that we agree to the exclusivity of tennis at the site, but we also add to that the wish to see that St King George's is not just a put money in the slot, have a look about for an hour, but there is actually potentially a partner there, which could well be the same people as got the site in Milton. Okay, Graham, you're itching to talk, and I've finished.
Yes, through me, you can.
Thank you very
I
much.
know you, honestly, can.
I think that we would sort of totally agree, and the aim would be to add coaching and that type of activity to King George's as well. In terms of the amount of usage and although it's not got electronic gates or anything, we managed to put on a booking system for King George's onto the LTA website, and it's signed and advertised up at King George's. Because one of the key things we were trying to do is that we had no idea who used it, when they used it, or anything like that. Whether it was just over Wimbledon. And one of the things that we found, I think, within the first 3 months of the booking system, it's an electronic system through the LTA, their club system. I think in the first 3 months of it being on the system, we had over 600 bookings from something like 200 individual different website web links, which totally astounded us, if I'm really honest, because we didn't think that it was sort of used in that way, and that was just purely through putting that system in place. The other thing that we did do for a period, I think it slightly got caught up in COVID, but we did put on again via the LTA some free coaching sessions for young people, which took place over the summer period. And again, that proved popular, and we just used it to.
The thing is, though, that needs to be sustained.
Yes.
And that's what often never happens. Youngsters have a taster course somewhere, and then they say, "What can I do next?" No, well,
And I think that's the beauty of having the tennis club involved with us. As you pointed out, potentially at both sides, perhaps in some form, but there is somewhere to go.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Councillor Truelove. Councillor Winkles?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, following up from what Councillor Truelove said, I think it's a great investment for the tennis courts in Milton. It's greatly needed. And obviously the parallel legacy, the Olympics a long time ago in 2012. The one thing I do want to clarify is I've read the charges £6 with the day and £9 at night. That this is for also all the members of the public, not just the tennis. Has access to the pubs. Can you?
Yes, yeah. So the tennis club you know, at the minute, and again, we're working on the agreement, but the tennis club have approximately about 30% of the court time currently, and that doesn't include sort of every prime slot, so every evening or the weekend. So it does sort of provide for usage at peak times for the public as well. So that would be the pay and play element, which sort of charge for. Like I said, that it's likely that we will put in some free usage as well to try to encourage those who really can't afford to pay. And then obviously the sort of any agreement with the club, like I say, guys, but it will include some payment for you guys for the lease for the time, which again will contribute or would contribute to the revenue funding for the maintenance.
So it's fairly distributed.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Dendon? Was that a legacy hearing?
Sorry, it's all been said, so I will withdraw my hand.
Thank you, Councillor Dendon.
I will just say that I totally support this, although being remote, obviously I can't vote, but I am completely in support of it.
Thank you, Councillor Dendon. I think, members, there's a proposal on the floor. Councillor Trudop?
Could I just come and ask, what quality of service would it be, the surface?
It's to the LTA standard. Essentially the way it's put together is that if the bid is successful, if everything's agreed, bid is successful, we sign up to the agreement. The LTA are currently going through a procurement process, so it's all the work is undertaken for them on our side. So it's all procured through the LTA. It's all inspected by the LTA, so it's all to their standard of service. So yeah, we know that we're going to get a proper job, and it's not sort of subject to any of our procurement issues or management or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you. So, members, I believe we have a proposal to take this report forward to the community committee, and I assume we can add in Councillor Truelove's the fact that he's in full support of single use. He would like to see some sort of coaching programme or club involved with KGV, and that it's also the last item to pass it on to the community committee. So can I have a proposal and a seconder? Well, can I take Councillor Truelove's proposal?
House.
And a seconder from Councillor Mingus. And members, can we vote on that?
It's for in favour.
Yeah. Unanimous. Thank you, members. So that will go to the chair of the community committee to be brought forward. And thank you for your take a grant for that, and thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you.
We now go on to agenda item 8, which is the highways improvement plan, and Councillor Dendon, as the divisional member for Sittingbourne North, is going to give a verbal presentation. Councillor Dendon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I've had a number of people ask me what HIPs are, highway improvement plans, and we've had a lot of discussion at county in the last few weeks. So I thought I'd just explain what they consist of. They were actually put forward by officers at KCC in about 2019, which Councillor Truelove may remember, to assist parishes with keeping or at least putting forward small improvement plans for local roads. They would have to be improvements, not maintenance, nothing to do with maintenance, but actual improvements, and directed towards safety and active travel. What had happened is the parishes had moaned quite a bit about a lack of communication from Kent Highways, and this was seen as a way to improve those communications. So to put into effect a log, into effect a team that would answer them. It would be owned by the parish, and I'll come back to the non-parished areas in a minute, with their list of priorities. But it's not an agreed programme of works, it's a wish list. And it's unfunded from a KCC perspective at that point in time. However, for parishes, of course, they have precepts, and parishes can put forward an amount of funds from their own precepts, from their own funds towards these projects. Basically, that's it. The unparished areas, of course, suffer that. Well, I say suffer. They have an advantage that they don't. The local residents don't pay a precept into the parish, but of course, then there's no funds to put forward to these kind of projects. What else can I say? It was intended to streamline the communication channels, and a team was put forward towards doing it, and formalize the actual process. Okay. In the case of non-parished areas, however, it doesn't stop people putting ideas forward from a community group or through their members. As people there will know, the very simplest plan, if you like, is for a ward member to put forward to the county member, and the county member takes it through to highways and tries to get it passed through. But that doesn't stop other members of the public or the local community in getting together and putting forward these ideas through the member. I mean, there are 336 parishes in Kent, and currently there are 230 active HIPs from those parishes. There were 96 current parish schemes in 21-22 on the go. Yeah. Schemes put forward in 21-22, as well as the 230. And I've just got a figure here, which I can't find for the life of me now. Where has it gone? Swale has 37 parishes, 26 active parishes, and the number of HIPs recorded since September 21 is 26. So some parishes have been very active, some don't have much money, so they haven't actually put much forward. That's it, Chair. It was just a very quick briefing, so anybody there who hadn't heard of them would know what they are. Happy to take any questions.
Well, I don't know whether you call you Councillor Dendor on this or Mike Dendor. It depends which hat you put on.
Mr. Dendor, if you want to go county.
Thank you, Councillor Dendor. Yes, I'm glad you did, because it's very interesting to bring that information to us. Obviously, we suffer or may not be the correct word, but obviously we are unparished. So we don't have the funds to generate this type of work. Are there any questions from members on this? Any comments to make on this particular item?
Yes.
Councillor Truelove.
So given these are schemes which haven't yet been put together and for which there's no funding, other than possibly parish funding, or possibly all councillors in Sitting Board could possibly give the two county members some idea. Given that any funding would be extremely small, could Councillor Dendor or even Mr. Dendor give us a hint as to the sort of thing that we might consider doing around Sitting Board with what seems to be very small amounts of money?
Yeah, surely, Councillor Truelove. In my own experience and John's experience, John Wright, the money, because we're unparished, comes from member grants. We sometimes can get KCC to put a small pot of money, but as you quite rightfully say, they all spot small pots of money. And the kind of things for road safety point of view is the dreaded yellow lines, which my member grants go towards, on areas where we believe there is a danger, for instance, blind corners, that sort of thing. So that's one of the things. We talked about active travel. So if there was an area of a pedestrian, a particular problem with pedestrians, for instance, trip hazards and so on along a piece of pavement, then we might be able to put something towards that. And from a point of view of safety, there are some funds in KCC for that kind of thing, which I can try and get Kent Highways to put some money in as well. So those are the kinds of things. As I say, safety and active travel are the target.
Thank you, Mr. Dender. Any other questions from any members? Any comments? I've got one which I will make later on under a separate item. Thank you, members. We now go on to agenda item 9, and I now pass to Janet.
Yes, so Milton Regis Society have requested to repurpose some funding that was previously allocated by this committee to them in 2021-22. They received £568.80 to fund paying for the installation of 2 signs on the wall in the square in front of the library in Milton Regis High Street. Now, this project was not started due to the fact that a number of issues were set out in the report about information being required from Court Hall and finding somebody who could translate the designs up the size required. And also the cost has gone up. So the funds have remained with Milton Regis Society. This last September, the Sittingbourne Area Committee was oversubscribed, but did allocate them some funds for 2 projects, one of which was to install a double-sided village sign on an existing post. And the cost of that would have been £5,370. But because the area committee was oversubscribed and could only give all the projects 48%, that reduced the amount of funding that the society had to spend on that project. What they're requesting this evening is if the allocation that was made in 2021-2022 could be repurposed and put towards the double-sided village sign. They realise that they still won't have the full amount of money, but they are going to seek other funding sources to make up the balance. And so they're asking the committee this evening to consider their request to repurpose these funds. As the chair is a member of the Milton Regis Society, has asked me to handle this item. So are there any comments or questions?
Yes, I'm sure the board members would like to say something, but can we just propose we do this? I can't see any reason on earth why we agree to this.
If there's a seconder and everybody agrees, that's fine. So who would like to propose?
I propose
Yeah.
that they are allowed to repurpose.
And is everybody in agreement? 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry, Councillor Hall couldn't hear the proposal and the second at the back. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you want me to shout it out? Will I be breaking?
It's as on the paper.
Yes, it's as on the report, the proposal in the report. Are you happy for the funds to be repurposed?
Yes.
Thank you. So if I could ask for a vote again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you very much. That's carried.
Thank you, members. Agenda item 10, public forum. Now, we've had no formal requests to speak. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in this particular moment? Looking at all the members of the public at the back, and they're all stuffing their papers and looking at us. Thank you. Thank you, members, on that. Agenda item 11, matters referred to the area committee by service committees. I believe there are none at this stage. But we will have a brief discussion at agenda item 12, matters to be referred to service committee chairs for consideration. And I will ask councillor Rolls to raise his issue
Chair.
and shout very loudly.
Really?
Yeah, so the people at the back can hear.
Right, okay. We know that the High Street has for many years been shut on a Saturday. Originally, it was considered that it was only the western end up to the Central Avenue. And then now, because there is a gate put across Central Avenue, people, the public who use the other end of the High Street, expect it all to be the same. Now, Nellis Avenue has Nellis Alley has always had taxis, various other vehicles using it, even on a Saturday. And it is very dangerous having number 34, which is right where the alley is. We visibly see all the problems. One of the major ones is young children who just walk across from, by the pet shop there. And there have been many near misses on Saturday. During the week, it's not quite so bad. Now, we've had the bollard put up, I believe it was KCC, have put a no entry sign at both ends, advising that there's a no through road, and also the no entry sign under the arch and as you enter into the High Street. Until the bollard was put up, it was being misused. And now I can say that it's working successfully. We at the media centre put one of our own cones there to warn people, because there is this problem of people who don't know, backing up and causing a congestion there. Now, the problem is who is responsible for the key. I've got a key at the media centre and the pet shop have a key. Now, I used it about 9 o'clock, put it up and stop the access. But it's just who is responsible for removing it. Now, we close at 4 o'clock. And my personal feeling is the person who's responsible, whether it be the council or some sense police, of removing the gate at Central Avenue should also be responsible for manning Nellis Alley. And I'd like to put it to this meeting tonight that we come back with a decision. There have been near punch-ups recently this week because it wasn't taken down until Monday, and a lot of people do use it entry into the High Street. So I don't want to be, as a councillor and as looking after the media centre, be responsible only. I think it should be above me to make the decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Rolls, and we have discussed this, and I've discussed this a number of times in the past. There is confusion because the High Street was always closed from one end to the other completely on a Saturday. And obviously when they introduced the partial closing on a Friday, some members of the public and people who are new to the area hadn't realised that the High Street was shut. I've seen vehicles reverse up from Bell Road in the past, all the way up on a Saturday. I don't believe you or Vic next door at the pet shop should be responsible to raise the bollard. It should be the marshal's responsibility. And also you put the bollard up at 9 o'clock, the road closes at 7 anyway. So it should be up at 7.
Yeah.
And then removed at 5 o'clock and not left up all on a Sunday. It is, however, a private road, and it does say no access or access only or something like that. It is a private road. So there's nothing we
You're a
can.
taxi driver that.
Yeah, yes, as a taxi driver, I use it. I think it is worth raising this again, because as you said, there was an altercation this week. And I believe it would be the community committee. And I guess,
We'll investigate with officers first to find out
thank you.
who it should.
Do we need to propose a second and vote on this as well? Or do we get recommendations?
Be an action. that's
Just an action,
the way
yes.
to investigate.
Okay, are there any other members or members of the public who would like to speak on this particular issue, which has been ongoing? Because the police says the council's responsibility, and the council says the police responsibility to monitor it, because it's a traffic prevention, DPO or some sort. And Janet will find out the correct method to carry this on. It is, I've been raising this for a long while now. Even when I was working at the pub, I would see people drive out and then go the wrong way up the high street just to get their hair cut. We'll hopefully Janet can find out the correct department and then the correct committee to refer to. Thank you, members. I think it just behooves, and in fact, the next meeting is Thursday, the 23rd of February at 7 PM. I had a brief discussion with Janet for the meeting, which I'm allowed to do, believe it or not. We're thinking it might be an idea to revisit Swale House, which should be open and accommodated in January, and it will be in Roman, which gives the Roman members a chance to bring their assembled masses along to the meeting. Yeah, I think the only ward we haven't covered is Milton in ours, and we're going to have to try and speak with the church.
Yes. What does go to home?
Appleyard.
Yes.
It is in Oakwood.
Member would have been aware of that.
Yes. So I believe we've covered all the wards apart from Milton.
Well, it's just.
Chalkwell. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, we did Diversity House.
Back by you, Chair. I mean, I know they said, I believe they couldn't use green porch on a Tuesday because they didn't. They couldn't just change the night. Possibly.
Well, this one's on Thursday, so it would be a Tuesday or Thursday. The only problem is it would always clash with other committees,
That is the
the
trouble.
Mondays and the Wednesdays.
Which is, we discussed this before.
Yeah,
I can't. Anywhere on hand, we could use.
no, not in Milton, I'm afraid. We don't have any large buildings. Okay, members, so if does anyone have any objection to revisiting Swale House? No. And giving Roman a chance at being our hosts, as it were. Okay, with that, members, I call this meeting to a close at very approximately 20:32. I'd like to thank everyone for attending, all the officers who stayed way beyond their need, and all members and visiting members of the public. Thank you for attending on what's proved to be a pretty chilly night. And of course, thanks to Janet, who put it all together. Who without Janet's help, this simply wouldn't have
They're
happened.
here.
Thank you, Councillor Lender.